Hi there. Thanks for being with us. We're making a start with a NewsX Sunday Guardian World exclusive.
Well, absolutely. In fact, after inflicting atrocities on the residents of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and also then terrorizing the Baloch, yet another ugly face of Pakistan has now been exposed.
The reports here that are suggesting that the Pakistan army has been using chemical weapons, believe it or not, against their own people yet again, and these being the residents there of the KPK, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region, in order to suppress their demand for a separate nation.
Well, the survivors of the brutal attack have exposed how the Pakistani army is using chemical weapons in addition with other means of destruction against the Pashtuns who have been demanding a separate state.
I think the whole world knows now that in the Indian subcontinent, the gravest violation of human rights is happening in those parts of the region which happen to be under legal or illegal occupation of Pakistan, whether it is Baluchistan, whether it is Pak-occupied Jammu Kashmir, whether it is the Pashtun women. And therefore, I think it doesn't hardly requires any more evidence. But at the same time, having said that, I would like to add over here that I think it should also be an eye-opener for some of those Pakistan sympathizers within India, including in Jammu and Kashmir, who raised the bogey of human rights on the drop of a hat, but failed to see what is happening in Pakistan.
As I told you that Pakistan has been using chemical weapons since long in Waziristan and other tribal agencies. It has been about 10 years that they are doing it since they started their first operation against the so-called terrorism in the tribal agencies. So there have been tens of families who have been affected by the use of Pakistan Army's chemical weapons, and there was a family who escaped to the nearby district Banu. We also did fundraising for them, and the photos that shows the victim, and many people have of course killed by the use of the chemical weapons.
Well, you know that the Chemical Weapons Convention is a very serious matter, and you know the extent to which in Syria this became a very, very major issue, and it's been an issue about the manner in which the Kurds, for instance, in the past have suffered. So this is an international responsibility, and of course, you know, when India speaks, anyone can complain that India has a personal grievance with Pakistan. And therefore, it's important that all the countries in the world that stand up for high human rights standards and claim to stand up for high human rights standards should take a first step. Of course, India will cooperate fully, I'm sure, and give whatever assistance India can provide.
If that news is correct and that paper Guardian have a very authentic value, and we have heard from other sources also, this is shocking, and this is the breach of the international law, the guideline laid down by the Swiss Accord also, and this is a clear-cut violation of the human right. I strongly condemn this, and government of India should take note of this. And one thing more, this matter should be raised at the UNO also, not by our government, but by other agencies, because if this is being done there, that may have impact across the border also.
It's sad and is against any human norm, and is against the UN norms also, where no one is allowed to use chemical weapons. And then what pictures I've seen are really horrifying, and this shows the mindset of the government in Pakistan. I mean, they can go to any extent to maintain their supremacy over the states, because people in Waziristan are asking for a separate state. This shows the state of Pakistan and what is ultimately a terror state now only.
Let's throw this open, in fact, to our studio guests with us this afternoon. We have Colonel Girish Mendiratha, defense analyst, with us. We also have Mr. Umar Daud, Khatak Pashtun separatist leader. In some bit there, we're going to be having Sultan Ali as well, who is a defense strategic expert from Pakistan, in just about a few seconds. First question we can put across here to the Pashtun leader. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. In your view, you could take us through the entire case here. You were stating that this has been happening for close to a year. And also, as my colleague Meghna there was saying, do we have any figures so far on this?
So the thing is, we have just the rough estimate of the people, because in Pakistan there is no press freedom. Especially that area is heavily guarded by Pakistan Army. Even they banned international humanitarian organization and relief organization like Save the Children to work there, let alone the journalists and media. Even some international journalists were arrested and beaten who were trying to get into Waziristan and report from the ground. So based on the people who are living there, they are estimating the numbers to be in hundreds, but only one family managed to escape to the nearby district, Banu.
Mm-hmm. But if there is only one family, and these pictures are very evident, and I think that's evidence enough, which is going to, that entire case is going to be resting upon. So that's the problem, isn't it? It couldn't have been just one family. This is just one family which came to light. The story came to light. There would have been thousands of others. There would have been people who may have lost their lives as well. Isn't it?
Of course, of course. I told you that based on the information of the people who are living there, they told me that the numbers are in hundreds. It may be in thousands. Maybe in thousands.
Let's get in our Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan with further on this, on how this is going to be seen internationally speaking. Geeta, this is essentially chemical warfare by the army against their own people.
Well, absolutely. We have been discussing it since yesterday, and I have been saying this repeatedly, that the biggest concern for the international community and the biggest concern for all those who are fighting terrorism, who are fighting states using weapons and unconventional warfare, is the threat of chemical and biological weapons and warfare. And that's the biggest concern that the international community has today, because the damage that can be caused by chemical and biological weapons is immense, is massive. Pakistan using such weapons and people coming out and speaking about it now should wake the international community up on Pakistan's own intentions when it comes to fight against terror,
right,
or for that matter, in the kind of mechanisms they use to oppress the people, be it the Pashtuns or the Baluch.
Absolutely. In fact, do stay on with us. Sultan Ali, a defense and strategic expert from Pakistan, is also joining us. Now, Mr. Ali, these pictures that NewsX Sunday Guardian have been putting out, that's evident enough how the Pakistani army has indeed gone rogue. It's committing war crimes, and unfortunately, this time around, they've turned on to their own people. It's not like you are attacking your neighbors. The own people, people who are living within your own territories, are now being affected by the kind of chemical weapons. Who needs to answer and who needs to be punished? Mr. Ali.
Okay, thank you very much for having me on your show. To start with, I personally condemn the use of chemical weapons against anyone, whether they are terrorists or whether they are criminals or anyone.
Or even citizens.
Let me, I mean, they're all citizens of somewhere. You see, they are human beings. End of the day, they are human beings, and human beings should not be subjected to this kind of a weapon which is condemned by everybody, starting from the Geneva Convention, the United Nations, or for that matter. Having said that, please, I would like to assure you that I'm privy to, most of these camps and other places. I visited them personally. To start with, Pakistan Army has not used chemical weapons. And I don't believe that these images which you are showing are true. Because we have, and I don't also agree with the comment made by another participant that Pakistan does not have press freedom. Pakistan has absolute press freedom. Secondly, we have very strong human rights organizations who would jump at the drop of a hat if Pakistan Army or ISI or anyone had been using this kind of a weapon.
Right.
So I really don't buy this story, if you don't mind.
Okay, Mr. Carter, would you want to react to that? First, of course, refuting those claims.
He is talking about his own human rights organization. They banned Save the Children to work there. They banned international humanitarian organization, international relief organization. They banned them. How can they talk about human rights? Pakistan is a black hole of human rights violations. 2 million people displaced. 200,000 Pashtun killed. Not a single terrorist killed. Not a single low-profile terrorist killed. Can they name a single low-profile terrorist killed in the past 15 years?
Mr. Ali, would you like to respond to that? These are voices coming in from your own territories. At least listen in to your own people, if not to India.
Yes, I respect this gentleman, but you see, results speak for themselves. The military operation Zarb-e-Azam, which has been carried out in North Waziristan, was long overdue. But the result of it is that terrorism has been reduced in Pakistan. It has come way down.
Right, Mr. Ali, let's leave that aside. We're talking about the chemical weapons attack here on the people of Waziristan. As my colleague was pointing out as well, these are citizens we're talking about. We're not talking about militants. We're not talking about terrorists. Let's just look at them as common people, poor citizens living in that belt of Waziristan. If you could react, keeping that in mind.
Yes, I would like to tell you that I'm a former Pakistan Air Force officer, and I know what kind of weapons we have and what kind of weapons we use. To start with, we do not have chemical weapons. And number two, we have been using precision-guided munitions in which we were targeting the militants backed by intelligence reports so that there was no collateral damage. Yes, there have been internally displaced persons, but they are being looked after by the government of Pakistan, by the Pakistan Army, and also by human organizations, you see, who have been going out there. I've myself gone over there with aid and helping out people. So I don't take this that it is a sad story. People should not be displaced in their own country. But if they have been displaced because of a military operation, they're also being looked after, and a whole plan has been chalked out how they will be rehabilitated, reinstated.
Colonel Mehdi Ratta, would you like to respond to that? That Pakistan is essentially a humanitarian state. They are taking care of all the internally displaced people, and they definitely don't have any chemical weapons. This coming from a former military man.
This is really surprising what I hear from the Pakistani gentleman speaking. Let me tell you, they are very famous for human rights violations. Now, if I was to bring the perspective in a nutshell, let me say that the number of casualties which have taken place there, if they were using these chemical weapons to kill terrorists, do you need to kill a terrorist with chemical weapons? You don't need to do that. Obviously, chemical weapon is a weapon of mass destruction. It is WMD. Now, weapon of mass destruction, you don't use it against terrorists. You use weapons of mass destruction to annihilate a population, a sizable population. What our friend here was trying to bring out, let me say that it is just one case of one family being displaced, IDP going across to Banu and his case coming to light. I can tell you there must be 1,000 others who are going unreported. So Pakistan Army is very good at hiding facts. And the fact of the matter is, if today the Pakistan Army as a state are using chemical weapons, the day is not far off when these chemical weapons will be used by the non-state actors. Right. And that is the day which we need to dread. We really need to dread, and we really need to guard against.
Mr. Khattak, in your view, how can you take this fight of you and your people, the manner in which you have stated chemical weapons have been used in you and your people here, how are you going to take this fight internationally? This needs to be a battle won in the international court now. What's going to be the case put together here from you and your people?
We have submitted a petition to the United Nations, and we have told them about the atrocities of the Pakistan apartheid and genocidal army on the innocent Pashtun civilians. And we will be taking this case to the International Criminal Court, an International Court of Justice. And we have already been doing this. Our team in Belgium, they have contacted the European Parliament, and they have been visiting United Nations, and they have told us that they will give us a seat to represent the Pashtun civilians and the atrocities of Pakistan Army is inflicting on the innocent Pashtun civilians.
I think I would like to add on to what he was saying. My point is, why can't countries like us, countries like India, countries like Afghanistan, countries like Iran, why can't we all move forward? We are all signatories to the CWC 1993 convention. Why can't we move forward and say that Pakistan is a rogue state? I would have agreed if these so-called chemical weapons were used by non-state actors. It is a state actor who's using it, obviously with due connivance of the political authority.
And against its own civilians.
Against its own civilians. Why can't we go it? And I fully support him by saying that, yes, in case they want to move forward, we as a nation should back it. we as a country should back it.
Okay, let's get in that input here from our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan. Geeta, that option there that lies in with India as being a signatory to what Colonel was saying, the CWC, which is the Chemical Warfare Convention, for India to take that still first step forward there to put this case in to the CWC first.
Well, that's right. India can take the lead, given that it's a signatory, and our guest is absolutely right in approaching it from the perspective of the fact that India, as a region, as a country in the region, has a bigger threat from chemical and biological weapons than just those populations that Pakistan wants to hit out at within Pakistan. The fear is that if Pakistan starts using biological and chemical weapons against India, then India will suffer huge damages, and is the reason why India could take the lead. We do know that in the cases against Pakistan at the Geneva at the International Human Rights Conventions, the issues have been raised only in the recent past. We saw the Baloch talking about oppression by the Pakistani forces, but use of chemical weapons is a different level altogether, and Pakistan will have to be answerable once it is taken up by the signatories in the international forum. That's when the international organization will have to then decide whether they're going to send a team on the ground. Now, the bigger issue will be if Pakistan will accept a team going into Pakistan to investigate the matter, and that's where the international community and international organizations will face a tremendous challenge in Pakistan allowing teams to enter Pakistan to investigate the matter.
Now, Mr. Ali, if I can come to you, unfortunately, the truth and reality of your country is that it is ready to harbor terrorists such as Osama bin Laden, such as Hafez Saeed, but when it comes to your own civilians, you've been trying to systematically try and annihilate them and also almost change the demography of the entire area. Any area which is restive, an active effort has been made to try and change the very demography of this entire region, be it Baluchistan, be it Pakhtunkhwa, or be it Waziristan. So the big question is, how long are you going to remain blind and deaf to the voices which have been rising? These voices are becoming very hard for the Pakistani establishment to to look over, to turn a blind eye towards. We have Sir here sitting, several other voices all across the world now have been rising against the atrocities, the war crimes being carried out by your army. How long can you hide that?
Okay, you have become the judge, the jury, and the executioner yourself.
I'm sorry, sir. It is your own citizens, your own civilians who are coming out, and they are telling us about the atrocities.
No, if you're a decent anchor, allow me to respond, please. Do not butt in straight
No,
away.
no one's stopping you, Mr. Ali. Please go ahead.
Okay. You see, you have based your logic on one, image of one particular family. I was on your program on the same channel last night at news at 9, and the images I saw, they were blurred. And when I asked that they be shown to me in clearly, they said that they are inhuman and they are going to hurt your sentiments. Right. Now, the fact is that on one particular image, you cannot get into a conjecture that the Pakistan army is using this. And this is an age of information technology where you are being watched by satellites, by drones, by whatnot. There are methods of measuring the level of, chemical warfare or biological weapons being used. It is not easy to hide these things. So it can be verified. If the gentleman who was mentioning that they're going to the United Nations and what, these are all organizations which are open. He is most welcome. And we would love to, as a human being, as a human rights activist myself, I would love to see if there is such a thing going on. But having been to these places, having been privy to a number of reports, I do not, support this argument at all. Number two, yes, India is trying to take the lead. Very nice. But then, my dear, it is the case of the pot calling the black. Look at your own human rights violations, which are, you're naming a Sunday Guardian story. The same Sunday Guardian story, I think 4 weeks back, talked about...
As a matter of fact, what I would like to say is, Sunday Guardian and NewsX are reputed media houses. Now, if somebody is doubting the integrity of these media houses, I'm surprised.
Sir, please, I'm not doubting the integrity. Allow me to complete.
Please listen me out.
We got your point, Mr. Ali.
Go ahead. Please listen me out. You are talking about the atrocities which we are committing in Kashmir. What atrocities are you talking about?
being shot.
You are trying to kill a fly with a bloody Bofor's gun. That is what is happening there in Pashtunistan, and that is what is happening in Waziristan, and that's what is happening in Baluchistan. Whereas in India, what is happening in Kashmir? What are you talking about human rights abuses in Kashmir?
All right. Mr. Khattak, if you could come in at this point, this is the nature of backlash, of course, you are going to be expecting from the Pakistan Army once this case is taken ahead to international courts as well. It would be imperative here to prove that there has been an attack of this sort where more than one family has been affected.
They are not allowing anyone to go inside there. They have beaten and arrested international journalists. How can we prove that? But I have the proof. I have managed to get the pictures of one family, and there are hundreds of more families. I have people there on the ground. They are heavily guarded. They cannot go out of Waziristan.
Name one journalist who has been beaten up. Name one, please.
Sorry?
He's asking Mr. Khattak that name one journalist also who's been beaten up in these restive areas. He says that no journalist has been killed or beaten up.
So can he name one single low-profile terrorist which Pakistan Army killed? 200,000 innocent civilians. You killed 2.5 million people. You displaced.
How has terrorism
Name
gone down in
one
Pakistan?
single terrorist which Pakistan Army killed. Name one single terrorist. You have been taking money from the US government, $800 million per annum, to fight against the so-called terrorism. You are creating terrorism. You have kept Osama bin Laden near Kabul, near military training academy.
Oh, that is a myth. That is a myth.
You have all the international UN declared terrorists. You have given them security, like Masood Azhar, like Hafiz Saeed, like Mullah Umar.
There was no Osama bin Laden.
You are financing terror.
Mr. Ali, this really comes down to that signature campaign that has been done in the past few years by your government and your army, which you very proudly talk about, Zarb-e-Azab here. At the end of the day, you have people from the Afpak region here saying that the Zarb-e-Azab has only ended up hitting the civilians there, not the terrorists.
No, but how has terrorism gone down? I'm asking you a question.
Is it? Has it gone down?
Yes, it has gone down tremendously. I'm living in Pakistan.
Name a single terrorist.
It has gone down.
A simple question that Mr. Khattak is asking, name a single terrorist who has been neutralized. Because I'm sorry, Mr. Ali, all the claims of you as well as the Pakistani army, today barely anyone believes it. And that's the truth. There is no credence left to what the Pakistani army is trying to tell the rest of the world when there is such mounting evidence.
Look, we are not interested in who believes us or who doesn't. We want to rid our country of terrorism, whether it is supported by people who are taking refuge in Afghanistan, or whether they are being supported by the Indian spy agency RAW, or by Mossad, or by the Daesh, or anyone.
All right, but Mr. Ali, would you agree to say that there has been collateral damage here?
Our aim is to eliminate terrorism, and we have managed to bring it down to a very acceptable level. Of course, we would like to.
Okay. What about the collateral damage? Your civilians haven't fallen victim to that war.
No, they have not. I'm sorry. I don't buy this story at all. This is a fabricated, false story. And you are only trying to blame on Pakistan because I think India grudges the fact that why is Pakistan not crumbling.
Colonel, if I can come to you, the reason why I was asking you earlier, which should be the country? Should it be India? Should it be Iran? Or should it be Afghanistan? Or perhaps the people of Pakhtunkhwa as well as Waziristan who should be moving the international court? Because every time India raises its voice, even for the Balochis, Pakistan turns around and says it's India's personal grudge, that nothing wrong has happened.
That's really surprising. Let me tell you, that's really surprising. Why shouldn't India move forward? I think we, as a responsible country of the region, as a matter of fact, I would say we are one of the most responsible countries in the SAARC region today and in the global world. If we put our back, if we put our support, give our supporting hand to the Pashtuns, we can take it forward. And we really need to take it forward. Let the international court decide who needs to come and do the inspections of the Pakistan army and find out whether they have used chemical weapons or not. And this goes beyond saying that they definitely have used chemical weapons. These pictures speak for themselves.
That's right. All right. One final quick update there from our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, before we wrap this discussion. Geeta, as far as this case being taken to international court, the uphill task that continues to remain to bring in those facts, the figures there to present in court that more than one family was affected in this chemical warfare.
Well, that's right. If there was if the Pakistani army used chemical weapons, then there will be more families who would have suffered damages. And if more voices come out, then there will be a credible case against Pakistan to be taken to the International Court, or for that matter to the International Human Rights Commission. And in that, the case can only be made from within, not from without, which means that people within Pakistan will have to speak up, will have to speak out, and more such families will have to come forward for the international community, or for that matter, even for India as a signatory, to take up the matter at the Human Rights Commission.
A bit belatedly, but at least these voices are becoming more and more louder and harder to ignore. Well, unfortunately, we completely run out of time. Thank you so much, Geeta, for joining, and of course, Colonel Girish Mehdirata, Umar Daud Khattak, as well as Mr. Sultan Ali for joining us from Pakistan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, Mr.